like to introduce our first reader as Dick Larose, but he won't let me call him that yet. I'm wearing him down. Instead, I'll introduce him as we know him, as a wonderful poet, a tremendously good sport, and a Canadian citizen. Richard grew up at Buffalo Lake in Alberta, studied poetry with Derek Walcott, and I can say Richard is the most sincere and earnest person you could ever hope to meet, who lives and writes with compassion and conviction. He is a gentleman in every sense of the word, but still a worthy adversary in a food fight. Richard Larose.
I found these collected works in the last archive of the North Saskatchewan River. Rockies dates by ink analysis from what is called the 21st century. George, Francois, Helene wrote in the 19th and later. Aporos writes from Untime, after the event that disrupted the Anno Domini system. All wrote in the same pages in the same book. On the cover written large, the Book of Bushbones. It seems to have been a chant passed between generations. I don't understand how this is possible, but I've attempted to translate the Michif to trade pidgin English. Sometimes the names of an author comes before a section. The Book of Bushbones. Rocky. The shutters rankle their poem. I hold a shade of them. A wild lick moves from sideways. Animals haunt the lawn. I went out there together, came back in shutters. Woodward gazes climb sky. A pine needle came with me. Blade, leaf, strand, stalk, shimmer, red shadows. This climbing weather, this knot. I open beaded curtains and little people come. They say, it was nice here. What they meant was we came together. The window rankles its sill. It shudders. We're leaving soon. Rocky. The flesh of the bush falls from its bones. Francois. We sprang from a river of violence. Aporos. Dances ago, people worked inside the tower frames that stab our blue world. When the race people perished, glass fell like leaves and the people danced. So the elders tell me. Pimachiwin. George. They say father died a coward on the banks of the Missouri and saw the ghost of my mother in the reeds. But yesterday he saved me from the fire. When the whole camp burned to the ground, priests and all. Rocky. We who can't orient to flat walls of light need the shadows of the bush bones. Helene. Where am I? And what leafless bones are these? Pimachiwin. Rocky. Aspen trunks splattered with black yolks, broken to green shells and blue sky. George. The plain is flat. The woods are dark. Maman. I just wanted to say, it is raining. Rocky. Paul. Helene. Aporos. George. Francois. Glass falls from towers like green flesh of branches. Water images of sky shatter with them. Remember Pimachiwin, a ball of dust gathering sky, like endless sashes wrapped around her waist to cover scars. The race to sky, future, most, best, brilliance collapses in a single flick of mother's shift when she dances. Rocky, 1998. Can anyone know what Like a Wolf is like? Flesh and thick limbs, sweet and salicic flavors seep and sizzle in. belly sliced, flayed against the grill, skin to the coals, flesh loses pink to whiteness. Willow green grill of branches fights the fire's advances. How many days since I last ate food? Bush cranberry tea days. One tiny strawberry under a leaf days. Oyster mushroom soup days, the last days of rice, corn and bannock, hard jerky, raspberry patch days, those were great days, and today. A fat brookie, orange and speckles, green and brown and white slash fins the air and fall to the grass of the creek bank day. Fill a space used to tea with fish day. Smoke skin, feel the leglessness of hunger fed with flesh day. Alone, smoke, swamp, moss, old man's beard in the branches. Wolf, the color and sound of pine smoke in the valley, silent and gray. Pine and brook trout slime, dirty nails and sticky hands. You can't hear wolf until you're far enough away in space and time from the race people. No light but sparks and stars and licks of orange and sun, and even that smothered in smoke, until your cheeks are creased and greased with grime and mud, sap sticky fingers lined with slivers, callous axe-handle palms and a flock of flies at your feet, all the daylight spaces, and night mosquitoes suck your face and draw your breath, and mouse chews the edges of your journal, the way to hear a wolf. Weeks from the last time you listened to human being lips or kissed them or felt a motor in your ears, weeks, maybe more, to hear wolf, when it walks or when it moans. This how you be a place. You let it bite you, let its figure you. Pimachiwin, mother, lil way de la terre, hay bales smell like this at midnight. A body only understood by naked body, palm cupping snow into a ball, moon, buttocks, a dangling cloud of bites, afraid, fingertip touch the insight of wolf's paw memories in thick mud. 1948, sunrise. Grandpa meets his grandpa near the fog hollow chain of ponds beneath the hills and poplars. 1 mile walk each from each other's homes with guns, while siblings and parents sleep. Grandpa looks up at his grandpa's face in the bearded cold. George speaks in mischief tones like stones from the bed of a stream. He pats Paul's shoulder. They crawl on their bellies through now extinct grasses until they see a trodden circular pad and grayish-brown creatures dancing. Creatures of centuries of pounding feet, their wings flit. But George and Paul are not hunting birds. And George says, if you kill them while they dance here, they will never return. Speckled, yellow-throated males, timid, glancing, choosing females, jigging in the center, and the birds turn circles within circles. One line spiraling each after the other, their wings wide. Paul never sees them again. Thank you. Ling Ma was born in Sanming, China. Prior to grad school, she was a journalist and books editor in Chicago. Her writings have appeared in Playboy, Chicago Reader, Ninth Letter, ACM, Unstuck, and elsewhere. Her short story, Fuzhou Nighttime Feeling, was the winner of the 2014 Texas Observer Short Story Contest. More recently, an excerpt of her novel In Progress received the Grey Wolf SLS Prize. I just wanted to add that I have thoroughly enjoyed all of the terrible movies we've seen together at Cinemapolis, and it has been an absolute pleasure working alongside you at Cornell these last 2 years.
I'm going to read from my novel, and I think it's best described as an apocalyptic office novel that's narrated by a production coordinator of Bible manufacture in China. That's my elevator pitch anyway. So I am going to read from the beginning. After the end came the beginning. And in the beginning, there were 12 of us, then 13, that was me, a number which would only decrease over the next few weeks. We found each other because we all had the same idea of escaping New York to the safer pastures of the countryside. We'd seen it in the movies, though no one could say which one exactly, which movie. a lot of things weren't reflected as they really were on screen. For one thing, the infrastructure still held, at least in the beginning of the beginning. We were brand strategists and real estate lawyers and human resource specialists and personal finance consultants. We didn't know how to do anything, so we Googled everything. We Googled how to survive in wild, which yielded diagrams of poison ivy, venomous insects, and bear tracks. That was okay, but we wanted to know how to go on the offensive against everything. We Googled how to build fire and watched YouTube videos of fires being lit with flint against steel, with flint against flint, with magnifying glass and sun. We couldn't find the requisite flint, didn't know how to identify it even, and before we tried using Bob's bifocals, someone found a Bic in his jean jacket. The fire brought us through the night and delivered us into the morning that we came across a deserted Walmart. We hoarded bottled water and exfoliating body wash and iPods and beers and tinted moisturizer in our stolen Jeeps. In the back of the store, we found guns and ammo, camo outfits, scopes and grips. We Googled how to shoot gun, and when we tried, we were spooked by the recoil, by the salty smell and smoke, by the liturgical drama of the whole thing in the woods. But actually, we loved to shoot them, the guns, and so we did and did so. We liked to shoot them wrong even, with a loose hand, the pitch forward and the pitch back. Under our judicious trigger fingers, beer bottles died, Vogue magazines died, chia pets died, oak saplings died, squirrels died, elk died. We feasted. Google would not last long, neither would the internet, or any of the infrastructure. But in the beginning of the beginnings, let us be braggarts. Or actually, we were not better than braggarts really, but who was there to envy us, to be proud of us? Our Googlings darkened, turned inward. We Googled Maslow's pyramid to see how many of the need levels we could already fulfill, the first two. We Googled apocalypse survivors, hoping to find others like us, and when all we found were the same outdated, inconclusive news articles, we Googled 7 stages grief to track our emotional progress. We were at anger, the slower among us at denial. We Googled, is there a God? Clicked, I'm feeling lucky, and were directed to a suicide hotline site. In the 12 rings it took for us to hang up, we prayed not only for friends and family, but for our secret, unrequited loves. Did we give up first, or did those on the other end of the line give up first? The question didn't haunt us until later. From this and other observations, it was empirically deduced that we were alone, truly alone. Things needed to be taken care of. We needed to be told what to do. Our self-appointed leader was Bob, a quiet, industrious man who worked in information technologies. He was slightly older than us, though by how much it seemed rude to ask. He was goth when he felt like it. He knew about being alone. Having played World of Warcraft throughout his 20s and 30s, it was as if he had prepared for this thing, this higher calling. He held his right arm in a sling close to his chest, tucked inside his shirt, after a botched carpal tunnel surgery. Partly maimed, he was especially adept at directing others to his will. We received his clear, concise instructions like manna. I have a place for us to stay, Bob said, puffing on his e-cigarette. The scent of French vanilla filled the air. We sat around the bonfire, listening. Now that New York was no longer an option, we were heading towards Chicago. The even-keeled prairie landscape of the Midwest and the Great Lakes region, its long, hardy winters rife with opportunities for canning root vegetables and stone fruits, the Midwestern sensibilities embodied in the large, beneficent scale of the city layout, especially River North and downtown, the larger blocks, the more spacious buildings, and at sunset, the biblical light against its stately modern architecture that had existed through fires and floodings, so many fires and floodings. Such an environment, we felt, could only behoove our better natures. We would set up camp in the lake breeze, lay down roots for our new lives, and procreate gently amongst ourselves, loving the offspring and offspring's offspring. More importantly, it was outside Chicago where Bob and his listserv buddies had amassed a gigantic post-apocalyptic facility bordered with electrical fencing. It's actually Wheeling, Bob said, Wheeling, Illinois. I am not living in a place called Wheeling, Janelle declared. Do you think it matters that it's called Wheeling? Todd asked in a rare moment of insight. We can call it anything we want. We can call it Janelle. Would that suit you better? Making plans heartened us, and as we stayed up drinking, we theorized grandly. What is the internet but collective memory? Anything that had been done before, we could do better. The Heimlich maneuver, breech births, the foxtrot, glycerin bombs, bespoke candle making. Lurking in our limited gene pools may swim brain tumors and every type of depression and recessed cystic fibrosis, but also high IQs and proficiencies with Romance languages. We could move on from this. We could be better. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce our next reader, poet Liza Flum. As she tells me, it always rhymes with plum, so there's no excuse for anyone to get it wrong. Liza Flum is from California. She has a BA in English from Harvard, and she has received fellowships to attend the Summer Literary Seminars and the Bucknell Seminar for Younger Poets. She is a poetry editor for Omnidom Publishing and my favorite brunch date in Ithaca. Liza Flum.
I want to thank my family for being here, and also the teachers and writers and friends who have been wonderful to me in Ithaca. And I'll begin by reading a group of poems that are thinking about a question I've been asked as part of a same-sex couple. And the question is, so which one of you is the guy? Is the question. Although, fuck that question. My friend, smart and thoughtful, says, hard to imagine not having the guy. What is the guy? Agent who can take off their skin and reform it into tiger, helper, taker, wanter, and wandering? Who's going to be the guy then? Which one of us is the guy? I mean, the guide, the conductor? In my first boyfriend's kitchen, when I say, don't make me be the woman, what am I saying about woman, kitchen, boy, make, friends? I worry. Still, I am so happy about being guy. We can both be guy together, wandering. I guy when I trick or jeer at someone. I run away, as in, one girl and I guide. Or else I lead, as in, I guy when I A, buy drinks, B, ask to be offered, or C, guy as a noun. A year ago, there was neither shape nor make in me. No guy ever matched me. You're burnt. It was so dark, some of the children thought you were the guy. I'm guyed at by the children. The actors treated this curious fossil with respect and did not guy the parts allotted them. We must make an end of that disgusting blunder of guying them, arrested suffragettes, up in hideous prison uniforms. An old cocked hat was the fashion. A guy, meanwhile, is a cord used to steady a thing. Question, will a lazy guy or a traveling guy keep your boat from sinking? Still, my friend asks, have you thought about whether being guy means less to you than it does to me? Guy sonnet. Deboned fish or leaf with the stem ripped out. You have neither shape nor make left. The guy, though, packs jumbled hay purposefully inside tattered jeans and a button-down shirt. The guy is wearing a mask where your face is. You like to think that guys have your correspondent parts. You, with your many compartments, your joining places, this is how you knew where the scarecrow's heart was. The guy isn't fish or leaf, doesn't make a self-shape. If so, you would see piles of straw in the wind gathered around the feet of what the guy likes most. Or the guy would still be growing wherever grass scattered from seed. Unmatched, you can flake and flare brighter than any guy. A year ago, you were a field. Guy liner. And your eyelid, pulled with your index finger to the tip of the socket, can you travel on it? Over the cool breath of your iris, fluttering on nerve wind, the lid is one mobile ripple. Smooth it quietly. This pencil outlines the curve of it, presses up in the crease of your sightline. Tell the edges of your vision that they have hitherness. Now write along the edges. Unreeling between skin and seen, for now a line stays warm in your hands. It's a rope to lift, a sail to set. A guy lifts necessity, loops it around spectacle, pulls a knot tight. This next poem takes up the image of the guy wire and turns to theater, talking about Peter Pan. And here I want to give a nod to MFA poet Ben Garcia, who taught me all I know about Peter Pan. As an object in flight is more gesture than an object, Peter is a swan dive. She plummets face first, a muscular tumble from the mantle, and then flips upright, laughing. She is a knee slap with a certain air about her. When the children fly, they become feet pedaling inside air. Rising on the wire's end, Peter switches quickly as a hologram. Shimmering under spotlights, she floats as herself, a boy running. In this number, there's an outcome that is neither heads nor tails. As long as the coin is in the air, everyone is lucky. When you're up here, you're whatever, Peter. A top hat sails from hand to hand under spotlights, from bed to chair to mantle, and then a boy catches the top hat, puts it on, and the nursery falls away. The stars teeter down, and a painted Big Ben swings by the moon. Every boy who's played Peter Pan has died strangely. Not right away, but years later on a beach, high on whatever, or in a locked bedroom. And every boy, there were a few, that Peter was based on, died in World War I, fell in front of a train, let himself fall. Even though Peter's flying line never tangles with the other children's or snags on the nursery walls, a boy can know the score but not sing. The crocodile who swallowed a clock is called he or she. We can't tell the time, but we hear. Thank you. I am very happy and honored to introduce our next reader, Lanre Akinsiku. Lanre grew up in the Bay Area and received a BA in International Political Economy from UC Berkeley. Before coming to Cornell, he worked as a political consultant, a high school teacher, a travel writer, and a delivery man. He's had nonfiction essays published in Zocalo Public Square, The Washington Post, and Gawker, and he's currently working on his first novel.
Thank you to the creative writing faculty for your advice, for all the books you gave me, for the encouragement. Thank you to the staff, the English department, and shout out to workshops past and present. I've learned a lot from y'all, stolen a lot from y'all, bro. So thank you. I'm going to read a short story. It's never been workshopped, so this will be my last workshop. And there's some sex-ish stuff in it, so parental discretion is advised. Okay. It's called It'll Be Different Next Time. 1. When we first met on the bus, you asked me what I believed in, and I said nothing. So we expected nothing. We went to restaurants, decent ones, not super cheap, but not the kind you take your mom to on her birthday either. That way, no one got any ideas. We ate small lunches at tables away from the window. We kept our elbows and napkins in the right places. We talked. We said outrageous things like, "Can you pass the salt, please?" And "Thank you very much for passing the salt." As we talked, we stared into our pasta salads like they were tea leaves. We talked about our exes, not in depth, no crying, nothing cheesy, but enough to call ourselves good listeners. We split the bill. As we walked home, I said, "I'm currently in love with someone else, but I'm thinking that should run its course in 6 to 9 months." A week later, we started calling after midnight. We went to Denny's to talk, always to talk until we ran out of words and coffee, and then, "Did you pull out?" you asked. Your hand searched the sheets. "Of course," I said. But of course I hadn't. It had been a while, and everything happened a lot faster than I expected. We slept on our sides, facing away from each other. That way, no one got any ideas. In the morning, we walked to Walgreens, hands in our pockets, as if we were strangers, just walking in the same direction. Through the toy section, around the baby food section, to the pharmacy in the back, where there was a line. We waited. I asked, "How long you think we've been waiting?" You walked to the front of the line, cutting in front of a lady with a fistful of tissues. I followed. You asked the pharmacist for something, and she bagged it below the counter so that neither of us had to look at it. 2. When we first met on the bus, you asked me what I believed in, and I said that the free market is the greatest generator of wealth in the history of the world, but also that that wealth will be confiscated and redistributed during the revolution. So we gamed the system. By that I mean we were efficient. Our texts were clever and direct. I didn't ask you about your day, and you didn't ask about mine. We didn't make promises. We didn't plan for the future. We didn't waste time talking about favorite colors or which parent we resented or if we even had parents. We didn't know each other's middle names. We never met each other's friends. We didn't take pictures. You opened the door, and I walked straight to the bedroom. There were no sheets on the bed. We agreed that no sheets meant no washing, the idea being that washing created a kind of domestic situation that could potentially foster emotional attachment. We laid in bed all day, our sweat gluing us together. I barely remember what your voice sounded like. "This is so perfect," you said. "I know," I said. Even then, I was thinking about running. 3. What really happened was, when we first met on the bus, you asked me what I believed in, and I said, "Can you believe that we're on the bus when in 20 million years a meteor is going to hit the Earth and there won't be a shred of rubber, not to mention buses?" So we believed in everything, the belief in everything allowing us to do anything, which we did. We borrowed money we didn't plan to pay back and traveled to faraway places. In this or that dusty town in the middle of someone else's country, we named the chickens. We sat gracefully on the back of Okadas, as if they were a horse and carriage. We drank cheap rum with the drunks. We laughed with the market women. We took pictures. We shouted out of open windows. At home, we lived like royalty, ate gourmet pork rinds. We slept on the floor. We poured milk in the cereal box. We shared the spoon. When there was no spoon, we ate with our hands. We planted flowers in stolen soil. We tore up collections letters from the library. We ate boiled eggs, and when we didn't have any, we ate buttered bread. And when that ran out, we had a neighbor with an apple tree, and we picked those and we ate them. We pushed corks in and drank and wiped our mouths with our forearms, and when we ran out of forearm, we just let the wine dry on our chins. We fed other people's cats. We didn't need reasons. We smoked, and in 30 years, we died. Truth be told, you smoked, and I got tired of waiting for you to come back inside. 4. When we first met, on the bus, you asked me what I believed in, and I said, couldn't it be true that all the answers are buried somewhere deep inside us? So we knew it all. We read bell hooks. We listened to Billie Holiday. We gathered evidence. We lectured. As in, did you know that sometimes slaves were married in ceremonies conducted by slave masters? As in, that's why black love in America is so hard. We felt better. We were smart. We believed that this shit, in reality, was a science. We had a patented formula, a recipe. We talked through our feelings. We made an effort to maintain positive body language. We set and maintained boundaries. This worked. In fact, there was no reason it shouldn't have worked, which of course made it harder to break off. As it was ending, you said, don't try some stupid shit like turn me into a lesson or a teachable moment or something. I have a face. I'm not gonna do that, I said. Afterwards, after I stopped trying to figure out your character arc, I got that feeling where you know what you're doing is the wrong thing, the thing you'll regret, which also feels good in a way you can't explain. When we first met on the bus, When we first met on the bus, you asked me what I believed in, and I said, okay, you got me. I believe in God. So we went to church. I swore to God I'd stop all the bullshit if you just let me have you. We laid in bed, naked as Adam and Eve, and we shook when you read the Bible aloud. Flames seemed to rise up all around us. We tried to exorcise the demons of lust and sexual immorality. At church, we felt the holy water dribble down our foreheads and onto our noses. There were many of us there, a legion of the sexually deviant. White Jesus looked down at us with the most miserable blue eyes from a portrait above the pulpit. It started raining on the walk home. When we got inside, we stripped down, threw our clothes into a pile. Help me wash my hair, you said. Okay, I said. We stepped into the shower, stepped out unclean. It was time to confess our sins. Okay, you said, well, I looked through your phone while you were in the shower the other day, and I lied about being a virgin. I'd never done this before, so I told you about a thing that happened when I was a kid, involving another kid, which may or may not have been a sin. You said, you should go to counseling or something. Okay, I said, let's pray. No, you said, packing your things. God has nothing to do with this. You should go talk to somebody about that. 6. When we first met on the bus, you asked me what I believed in, and I said, nah, I'm not falling for that one again. So what we did was we made lists. Lists of foods we were allergic to, lists of things that annoyed us, lists of chores that needed doing, lists of medications we needed to take, lists of bills we needed to pay, lists of names for our future kids. We were responsible. We would not make the mistakes of our youth. We put a big list of mistakes of our youth on the fridge, which, being a little obvious and played out, will not be discussed here. On handwriting, you like to let your words breathe a little, my theory being that the gap in your front teeth made you fond of big spaces. You say my letters are too close together, like they've been in a head-on collision. You say, yeah, you shouldn't let the letters in your words touch. It's prettier when they're really close but not touching. It took me a while to realize you weren't talking about words. One day, we were eating cake, carrot cake. Are you going to finish that, you asked? No, I said. That's not okay, you said. You shouldn't start things you don't plan to finish. I finished the cake. How do you feel, you asked? Sick, I said. Good, you said. Good. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce the woman with the coolest hair in all of Ithaca. Cody-Clifton grew up in Connecticut and the coast of British Columbia, Canada, where she received a BA in writing from the University of Victoria. Her fiction has won the Zoetrope All-Story Fiction Prize, the Fiddlehead Short Story Prize, was named a finalist for the Malahat Review's Open Season Award, and earned her an Aspen Awards Emerging Writer Fellowship for 2015. She is at work on a novel. We're both West Coasters, so during the winter, I can always count on Cody to complain about the weather with me, and I really appreciate that.
Hi. I'm going to read a bit of a novel that spans about 200 years, but I'm going to place us in 1872 for this particular section. It's about a rancher named Hugh Sampson an outlaw who became a horse breeder after his twin brother was murdered by one of his former partners in crime, Roth. 5 years later, Roth catches up with him and inadvertently introduces Samson to the woman who later puts a wrench in his good man plans permanently. Here we go. So at last the past is here. The past's blown in from the east on a hot wind, full force, guns drawn, demanding that the present cough up what the past is owed. The two are never at ease. They're always finding new ways to punish each other. Well, fuck me, the man grins. He's missing 3 more teeth than he had 5 years ago, all in the front. Folks at the last outpost were right. They told me about a ranch not far from them, the owner looking like you do, and I thought, hell, it's gotta be you hiding out here after all. Made a mess of him all over there, I'm afraid, but a man's gotta cover his tracks. Guess I agree, says Samson. Roth inclines his head. Speaking of, what are you calling yourself nowadays, huh? Tip of the hat to you. Or at least I would. No disrespect meant. I lost it 30 or so miles back. No time to run back around and get it, of course. He laughs again, an airless, humorless laugh. Always in a hurry to get your ass out of sight in this line of work. You know how it is. Whatever it is you want, Samson says slowly, can wait till your companion there's got a drink and some time in the shade. What's that? Roth straightens up and crosses his arms over his chest. Want, you said? You think I've come to take something from you or something? Don't it look like I've got enough on my plate? Samson doesn't bother repeating himself. For a whole minute, he watches in silence as his old partner stretches his back and rolls out the kinks in his bones. Knees, hips, shoulders, neck. Behind him, the girl is so still she might not have even been alive if it weren't for the sweat dripping down from her forehead and into her open eyes. The hair around her face is blown loose from her braid. It sticks to her temples and the wet skin of her neck, the whole lot of it a strange color difficult for Samson to put his finger on. Not red, but not yellow either. Maybe closest to a burnished rose gold, the pure stuff, but thoroughly coated in the dust of this place. Don't you go accusing me of nothing now, says Roth. I'm here to propose a trade, one of your horses for mine. Samson's face registers nothing. Hope you don't mean that pony there. What else would I mean? Roth says. He shuffles the dirt around beneath the heel of his boot. While we're at it, you got a girl? Don't know enough about the one I got here to convince you a trade's worthwhile, though. Ask me about the pony instead. Samson takes a deep breath. His thoroughbreds are the finest to be found out west. He'd had to buy his breeding stock from Massachusetts and Kentucky and import them to California by rail. A risky and expensive venture that had him leaving his livelihood to chance, to fate, a gamble he'd never have made years ago under his birth name, knowing full well how easy it becomes to lose your valuables once the country gives way to hostile open land. It's one horse that Roth was asking for, and Samson had Rebecca's safety to think about. One horse. One horse to Henley's murderer. So, I don't trade nothing, Samson says. This is a business I'm running. You can buy or you can rest up here and be on your way. For a moment, Roth just looks at him with his mouth half open, as if waiting for him to speak up and change his mind. Look, friend, he says finally, I've got nothing against you here. Your damn brother's the one who fucked up, wasn't it? And I already made sure he paid for it fair. Let me lay it out for you again. Without looking at Samson, he puts his weight against the sliding barn door and heaves it open a foot. At the same time, Roth turns his body minutely, showing Samson his profile, his right side eclipsing his left. You take my mongrel, I take your horse and the loot, he jerks a thumb behind him at the girl who flinches, and be on my way. The rest of the boys are dead, aren't they now? So we ain't got nothing more to worry about. Won't see me again, at least not till the next time I pass through. Roth steps across the threshold of the stable. As his right side moves, Samson sees, so does his left shoulder, just barely, a near imperceptible shrug. A thick-bodied fly hurtles across Samson's line of vision, wings flashing all shades of semi-precious in the harsh light, on its way to somewhere far from here. The first shot he fires turns the bare edge of the wood next to Roth into fine splinters and unwraps the flesh from the knee of his back leg, revealing a hint of bone whiter than the shirt sticking to his ribs. Roth grunts and stumbles, grasping for the barn door with one hand. He manages to draw his gun before Samson shoots him in the back twice, delivering one final bullet through the back of his old partner's head. His eyes follow the flourish of carmine blood and brain matter that sweeps over the wood of the barn door, a quick and effortless arc, as if executed by the calligraphic brush of the delicate, fine-boned hand of some cosmic entity. The sound of that final shot continues to travel across the vast, dry acreage of the ranch and beyond, the sky a dome that traps and repeats it over and over again until it dissipates into a whisper, and soon after, not even that. The body falls forward on its knees. For a few more seconds, Samson remains where he stands, chin lifted, poised to take in the last few breaths of that dying echo. Then, goddamn weak, he thinks. He shakes his head. 5 years ago, he would have taken any threat at that range down with a single bullet instead of wasting all that extra iron. Perhaps this new life, the alias, the wife, all this time off, has changed Samson more than he'd supposed. He doesn't have the right to mourn that. He'd asked for it, after all. He'd wanted, so he'd gotten. Perhaps now at least he could stop feeling dogged by Henley's shadow, dreaming about him, waking up and having to reassure himself that his body was in fact his own and not his twin's. He'd spent 17 minutes longer in the world than Henley. 17 minutes and how many breaths? And because of it, he'd been finishing his younger brother's business all their goddamn lives. What a surprise to find that death's changed nothing. Well, he demands of the sky, are you satisfied now, Henley, you dumb bastard? Henley? You listening, Henley? It doesn't matter. His address is superstitious, useless. His incantation bucks and flees when he holsters his guns and he feels the weight of the metal against his hips again. Everything Samson said and done in this life precludes him from believing in an afterlife. That sliver of his old self laughs suddenly, distantly, as if it had been waiting to be consulted from the moment he riddled Roth full of holes. If I were you, it says, I'd do as I do. Have yourself a smoke and bury the body. Bury it right, it insists, right under that pile of horse shit. Samson blinks hard and presses the back of his forearm against his brow, trying to clear his head. And indeed, clarity comes. As soon as the sweat's been daubed from his face, he remembers he's not alone. First, he thinks, turning. First, before dealing with whatever's left of Roth, what should he do with the witness, the girl now sliding off the pony's flat back, sinking right down to her knees in the dust, now struggling to her feet and stumbling toward him, dirty white dress caked in red dust from the weight down. Here she comes, moving ever closer, that shuffling, jolting gait afflicting her slight frame with the shuddering of a body caught midair by a hail of bullets. She's 10 paces away from Samson now. 9, 8, 5, 4. Here she comes, out from behind one killer and straight into the path of the next. God help her. What's to be done with a fool like that? Miss Renia White grew up in District Heights, Maryland, and Riverdale, Georgia. She received her BA in journalism with an English minor from Howard University in Washington, D.C. Her writing has been featured in the Body Narratives, Episodic magazine, and across print and digital media platforms. Her poetry was named a finalist for honors such as the Nightville Poetry Contest, the Pocatello Poetry Prize, and the Hurston Wright Foundation's Award for College Writers. Her work is forthcoming in the New Guard. Additionally, having spent the past year as her roommate, I can attest to what you're all probably suspecting already, and that is that Renea is a fierce and brilliant poet in person.
Of the reading To Our Sorrow and Our Joy, where they meet and where they might cancel each other out even. 36C. The first time a boy asked me about my breasts. We were on the front steps of Abyssinia Baptist, and those boys everybody knew weren't saved, just brothers, had rode in with us on the Vacation Bible School van with that heavy door you had to dislocate your shoulder just to close. And I can't say I wasn't intrigued, but something about that moment felt like, maybe girl, go prove you talk to God like you know him. So I tattled, and my church uncle grabbed that boy, just a brother, up by his ear with a twist so hard I heard it pop like a knuckle. And if I knew then, those brothers would remain as unsaved as before, that no vestibule assault would take his eyes off my sprouting, that just 'cause you've got a ticket doesn't mean you'll get in, I would have told him, 36C, like grown women, like I wanted, like it was some shame to know all by myself, so I had to let him in. And maybe he'd have saved me, that boy, just a brother, all black and real solid, real wiry, in on the joke so soon, he couldn't help himself. Casual conversation, March 19th, 2015. When a girl falls to her knees in the woods, she could be kneeling for prayer, even if it seems she couldn't. Believing in possibility is like that, a way to hide from what history has told us. Listen, they just found a man hanging from a tree in, my God, Mississippi. Oh Lord, this could also be his way of choosing. Thank God for the possibility of a choosing ghost. Thank God the mothers still know their sons into remembering. Thank God each next story still has 3 sides. Thank our spent God who knows the rope in hand, the diameter of a kneeling knee, how it came to kneel, what will stab at the thin skin, that it will be less than whatever took the man not touching ground. Thank our prickling God and his tongue, waiting to meet us with our answer, our choosing ghosts that trouble. Sometimes I flash forward and cry. I am afraid to have this thought. A 1.5 bedroom apartment in a city I can bear. Metallic hangers and art featuring brown girls, their faces obscured by large flowers and overgrown fruit. A bed so heavy it startles the sinking hips. A man with my feet in his hands who half coos. I bet you were hard to find before I found you. Enough rum to think I smell of it. So much rum it waits for its glass, also rimmed metallic, all the things glimmering, the man's eyes growling, all the fruit unripe, everything wishing to be unfound. The first time. I once was trying to catch my bus on time, not even mindfully carrying my sets down a college street, when a troop of boys asked me to wait up. And of course, I didn't, because 5 of them would never mean well for one of me. And they were just boys then, not even mindfully, to me, white boys. And one gained speed, tapped my shoulder, complimented me on my outfit or hair, some small nicety. Thanked him, but kept my pace. Just trying to get to my bus on time, I told him. He halted, looked back, and his silence held a, how dare you, so acute. I dug into the clack of my boots, shaken. Resumed my march to the bus I had to catch until, stupid nigger bitch, grabbed my ankles. Stupid nigger bitch, just once. Ripe in the air, a stain I could feel the way a stench also tastes. The way terror morphs since, I was learning. Even terror is a way of teaching. But which goose of the 5? Who said it? I cried, desperate to teach the air to re-receive what it gave. But they kept silent, just walked away. And I ached from having no word for those boys, now mindfully white. A word so for them I could say it and never miss. Watch them retrieve it from my mouth like a belonging. Buzzed anew with knowing, thinking, this must be how it felt when they came with the gun. This last poem is on healing, which we might need by now. A bit lighter. It's called How To. Thank you again for listening. How to. You could count the unaccounted for. Take inventory of the cold up under your skin. Make a math and jar it. Unwant, then ache and rejar. Spill something just to unspill it. Remind yourself you can undo. Jar the unjarable if you will it. Summon your ghost self, twisting its lid with your doing hand. Write letters to your dead. Agree to meet yourself in the space you expected another. Build a fence with its own house, yard, fence, and yield. Make the place you gotta go before you know you gotta get. Say, sometimes you're someone, somewhere, meeting the wrong need. Then refuse to be kept by anything you don't choose, be it jar, be it boat, be it fence. Be a boat on a sea of which you think you are a part. Be a boat that learns. If you just reach the shore, you'll see what you are made of. Thanks. Up last, I'm so excited to introduce my favorite person in the world named Mary-Margaret Stevens, who's also the funniest person named Mary-Margaret Stevens, I'm pretty sure. No, really, she's lovely and absolutely hilarious. It's almost unreal, unfair, all the things But more, I guess formally, she was born and raised in upstate New York. She graduated magna cum laude from here, Cornell, in 2013. Her work has won the Arthur Lynn Andrews Award for Fiction twice. She's received an honorable mention for the George Harmon Cox Award in Creative Writing, and her work has appeared in Syracuse University's Stone Canoe. She is currently at work on a novel, and she's lovely, and she's right there. Mary, hey.
Well, now I have to be funny. But even if I'm not, I'll still have you out of here in a tight 5. So, Mother's Home. In this catalog, you'll find the list of services we provide to help take care of Mother. The first part is all very basic information on the process. No need to read that now. Just know that if you let us, we'll take the very best care of Mother. See, here are some of the tableaus that we do. They look natural, don't they? So lively, I said. Yes, that's right. We work hard to achieve that feeling, and positioning is key. You want Mother to look natural. The full tableaus can all be personalized and are very easy to keep clean. Then there's always custom positioning to help you refit Mother into the home. That's becoming very popular now. Everything's getting a lot less formal these days. And you don't have to decide now, of course. Just know that when the time comes, you'll know what's right for Mother. And you take care of all the personal hygiene. Now, the pickling and degreasing is all handled off-site, but we're proud to do the fleshing and staking in-house. Our armatures are all wire and wool, and the posing is limited, but still more than with a polyurethane model, and it will make Mother soft to the touch. I've heard they're flash freezing mothers now. Is that something? We like to stay very traditional here, with just old-fashioned salting, pickling, and degreasing. It requires time and art, but with flash freezing, there's always a risk of carpet beetles, and you won't find that here. There was an upcharge for the hand-blown glass eyes made with 2 metal oxides, nickel and iron, to achieve a gradation of greens. I bought a slipcover to keep the late afternoon sun from fading her, and she came with a complimentary variety of air fresheners, baked cookies, new car smell, and alpine fir tree. Just until that odor fades, but I think you'll find you'll grow accustomed to it at first. Can be very homey smell. My sisters and I were given a card for anything else at all, and we went home and waited 2.5 months for Mother. We decided on having Mother put over a semi-posable armature for integration back into the domestic sphere, rather than fitting her into a display. We drove Mother back in our car, out of the way to avoid the men and children's cemetery, and past a small sheep farm and an old cornfield resting for the season in sunflowers. In the driveway, some neighbors women who had children and would one day be mothers, met our car. "Oh, good," Mrs. O'Grady said. "She's finally come home." "There just can't be a home without a mother," said Mrs. Salmonfeld. "Have you been in a house without a mother?" "Unsettling, that's all it is, and there's no excuse for it," said Mrs. O'Grady. "Nothing wrong with a store-bought mother either, if you ask me," said Mrs. Salmonfeld. "Nothing wrong at all," agreed Mrs. O'Grady. Mrs. O'Grady had 3 generations of mothers, all of which had pride of place at the dining room table, where they were occasionally presented with plastic foods and thin air tea by Mrs. O'Grady's grandchildren. Mrs. Salmonfeld had her mother done to stand in the kitchen, poised over the stove or the sink. We had some water damage to the hands, but Harold cut out the mold himself, and I really think the yellow dish gloves look more natural on Mother now. At home, we spent hours brushing Mother's hair, removing the tiny silica packets hidden in her mouth and ears, and dressing and undressing her, trying her second wedding gown on first, then the first, her public servant's uniform, and then finally a pink nightgown. Mother was bent, almost sitting, and we decided to pair her with the red and white wingback chair in the formal living room. Her hands on either arm, slightly raising herself so that at any moment she might seem to be going to do something, preparing to follow you, or just settling down beside you, getting more comfortable. But it was difficult to vacuum around her. And that chair had always been such an eyesore that after the general shock wore off, my sisters moved Mother into the garage with the Christmas decorations. And now we just take Mother out with the lights and ornaments once a year. Thank you.